It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
For some reason, we have a tendency to want to go and do a little personal archaeology all the time. Let's excavate the past. Let's see what is not working. What are the anchors? It's just sort of a knee-jerk.
We go back over the map again.
We just go over the trail because we know the trail.
Yeah.
So, what is less familiar to us?
Oh yes,
is where are we going?
And it's so important because again, one of the things that we get distracted with in going back over the map is it doesn't help us to move forward. But moving forward into something. Requires,
it's easier to go over a map than to make a map.
Yeah, it requires...
we got to make a map. It requires more attention, more discipline. Discipline, there's a distinction here to be made.
Yep.
Between these two different kinds of energies. There is there are generating energies, gratitude, trust. These are generating energies. You tune into gratitude, it generates more gratitude. It generates experiences to support the energy of gratitude. There are resonances. There are also sustaining energies. These are energies that like discipline, ownership, celebration. We're less... I shouldn't say we. I certainly am less familiar and practiced at tuning, fine-tuning, calibrating to discipline, to ownership, and to celebration, relative to my to the ease with which I tune to other frequencies. Not necessarily the generating ones either, but sometimes feelings of energies of anxiety, energies of pessimism, or energies of confusion or frustration, all kinds. I mean, there's there's an endless. But when we talk about sustaining energies of discipline, celebration, the ownership, these are the kinds of energies that sustain realities that we create, sustain wins that we create, and that we want to. There's so many of our listeners who are deeply engaged and involved in personal work. There are so many of them who are so interested in things like laws of attraction and all this sort of thing, and are focused on the generating, the manifesting. And the tricky thing is, once one has created something, a relationship, a job situation, a win, to be able to own it, to be able to embody it, to be able to be it, so that it is not a tenuous and a precarious relationship. And that involves the ownership, the celebration, the discipline. And it also involves having a relationship with what can be. We had a guest on not too long ago, Gabriel Nosovich, who spoke with us.
Yes.
Differentiated between where we are coming from and where we are going.
Yeah.
And this idea of what are we aiming toward?
Yeah.
What are the energies involved? They're very refined. The energies that underlie where we are aiming, what we are visioning, how we hold ourselves in relationship to a future. Now that can only be built on top of ownership and on top of celebrating who we already are. We begin to shift our relationship with what can be, because it becomes really fun. Wouldn't it be fun to have a fun relationship with life, to have a curious relationship with life, on top of my discipline, on top of my ownership, on top of my gratitude?
It's brilliant. It's really brilliant. And, you know, we've expressed this before, that these can be practices, ways that we come to a kind of discipline. Discipline's a tricky word.
Because it triggers people. And
It triggers me. So I'll forget about everybody else. I'm just talking about me.
well, let's talk about that.
No.
We have a 40-minute hour.
Yeah, that's right.
Why so, though? I'm curious.
You know, we're back to the conversation we had, you know, recently about failure and how do I accept failure and how do I love that part of myself. And discipline is one of those things where I immediately start to feel like I might fall short. I might not be able to sustain the energy of focus, of, you know, whatever I'm calling the discipline. That's not necessarily true. When I speak about it, you know, we've talked about this as being a part of me. There's a part of me.
What if you frame it as the adherence
Yeah.
to a practice?
I love it. And I can
That
do
is
that.
discipline.
No, I know. I'm really just copying to a piece of one of the fragments that I have to, all these tin cans that are banging behind me that I'm bringing along that we call the map that we go back and check out and say, yeah, they're still there. Those are all my pieces of wounds and experience. Yeah, those. I'm just telling you they come along.
Sure.
So
Yes, it's a dynamic.
Yeah. So immediately one of the aspects
You have
that
both plates going.
Right.
And
Right. So one of the ones that shoots up when the word discipline comes out is like, oh gosh, can I live up to even my own possibility? Because I am so used to running back to the map, running back to the reservation, running back to the known. So this very exciting and this wonderful looking and aiming and going beyond, as exciting as that is, there's still this part of me, this fractured part of me, that goes, okay. And it's just this constant, for me, it's okay. This inclusion, this recognition.
I want to just jump in on
go
it
ahead.
a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Because I relate to that.
Yeah.
And here is some of what I'm discovering for myself, and it's very much in real time. There's a very delicate balance. It's to resort to the cliche, it's a razor's edge. It's the edge of a feather. This fine balance, like the fulcrum of a teeter-totter. And I experience myself in relationship to the vision, to the aiming, in relationship to the ownership, as well as the discipline. I experience that vision and the tension of the tin cans that are clanging along behind me.
Yeah, that's a beautiful word.
And
yeah.
I can,
Tension.
it is this tension. And I imagine myself, I experience myself at the fulcrum of it. And it is, you know, I'm a surfer. It is that edge. It's that edge where you just ride that edge.
Yeah.
And I ride it without allowing myself to collapse fully into the story, which is a whole bunch of, is a whole, once you get into the story, you got to dig yourself out of a serious hole.
Yeah.
I allow myself to experience the tension of being seduced into the story, and then I move back like on a wave to feel the seduction, a big glorious attraction of something primordial, something wonderful that is me beyond me, that is beckoning, summoning, loving me into possibility, and I just feel the tension.
You just lean into it.
I lean in, and then I lean back, and then I lean in, and then I lean back.
It's just a lean, yeah.
But you begin to move, to begin to lay a trail into something.
And what shows up, Barnett, is more and more opportunities to do this. Look, we've got opportunities coming up. Our evening with Deidre is coming up, and there's going to be these moments where we create these opportunities more and more.
11-11-11.
Yeah,
if anyone is interested in joining Deidre Haight on 11-11-11,
Yeah.
there is
We're gonna
more
facilitate that.
information
Yeah.
on our website, on
Yeah.
the Cutting Edge Consciousness Facebook page.
Yeah. We'll be putting all that up. But the point is that there's these moments where I can make choices that take me closer to my edge of possibility. And there's these ones that are very familiar. They're the reservation, where I can just keep going back to the familiar choices. I know what I'll get. And I will be the first to raise my hand and say, I watch how many times I make a choice that I know there was a choice that would have stretched me more, that would have allowed me greater possibility.
But we have been conditioned to gulp big breaths and to take big bites
Versus leans, little
versus
leans. Yeah.
leans. This is
brilliance.
This is at this point for me an energy in the body exploration.
Totally.
And so it's not so much conceptual as it used to be, but it is the delicate nuance, like rubbing my thumb across the surface of a patch of velvet. I just want to feel the fine edge. I get to the edge of where I feel myself being pulled back, and at the same time I can feel the tension of what is possible without allowing myself to get overwhelmed by either. I just want to feel that tensile relationship.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's the edge of
That is the edge of it's the edge of choice.
Yeah,
It
and
also-
choice. Yeah, brilliant.
I want to know the terrain and not allow myself to become overwhelmed with something that precipitates a crisis or chaos, or where I suddenly throw my hands up and say I'm in overwhelm. We can slow the thing down.
You know what I get seduced by? I've said this so many times. I'm so easily seduced by the second story, by winning. That's incessant for me, Barnett. The whole, I can't tell you how many times I go to the fantasy of winning. I have an organic experience, this kind of experience with something, and I immediately start wrapping it around a story of how I win, how I overcome, how I triumph. I'm just aware of it. Just like I'm aware of Clever Boy, which I won't go into now, but we've talked about that many times. I'm aware of that coming up, like, oh, this is a Clever Boy moment. I so want to go into Clever Boy and run that dynamic, run that racket, if you will. But the same is true with the winning. It's such that second story of triumph is so ingrained and so supported by.
Well, back
the
out of it
stories
a
in the
little
world.
bit,
Yeah.
as so that it's not so overwhelming. Here's how I hold it for myself. That second story of winning, for people who are new to this language, we refer to the first story as the "Oh, poor me" story. This is what happened to me. I was born under a can.
It's the circumstances.
And my
and
circumstances, my life, and it was so bad. And my mom did this, my dad did that. And I wasn't. And not to say it wasn't true. That's irrelevant. That's the first story. The second story is a developmental story. Not all. People move beyond the first story of "look what happened to me" to a story of how I overcame what happened to me.
Yeah.
I worked hard. I learned this skill. I learned that skill. I rose in the ranks. I got the corner office. I became a master of Wall Street.
This is the story. This is the collective story that we tell.
It's the American
it's the
dream.
made-for-TV movies.
It's the American dream story.
Yeah, it's the American dream.
Eventually, I worked so hard. I overcame, and now I lost the weight. I have the.
I got the girl.
I lived
happily ever after.
That's the second story. The third story is a shift. Again, it's another developmental shift that moves from how I felt at the effect of my first story, how I overcame that first story, and to the discovery of myself in relationship to everybody else, everything else. Who am I in relationship to all that is? It is a story of destiny and fate, not assigned, but self-chosen and expressed. It is the
And it's
story,
always
it's the
evolving.
transformation. It's basically the story of personal transformation. It's an evolving story.
It's an evolving story that we live into, and then it reveals more and more to us. And it's a
here's the takeaway on it
experience.
for the purposes of our discussion.
Yeah.
I don't want to digress into. I don't want to digress from this. The takeaway of the third story is the hallmark of it is what can I give more than what can I get. It's what can I learn more than what can I reaffirm.
Yeah.
When I relate to the pull, the seduction of the second story, I want to win so that I can feel vindicated, so that I can feel better than. so that I can feel
all that.
All that stuff.
Yep.
All that stuff. Instead of going to war with it, I say now on the other side, it really is what can I get is really the second story, and what can I give is the third story. What can I reaffirm about myself is the second story. What can I learn and discover is the third story. Where am I going is the third story. Where have I been? It is easier for me to feel, again, the delicate relationship between the two stories when they are not all filled with their story and drama, but when they come down to just that tension that we spoke about between where am I going? Is this where I'm going, or is this a retread of the map that I know I know the trail of tin cans. I know it really well. Do I have to go all the way down there before
That's right. That's what this discussion is.
I just want to play on the edge.
Tension.
That's the razor's edge.
It's the tension. I don't want to go farther into imagination either, but that's the tension of my imagination has been so wrapped around the limitations of the second story. That's
but that statement is a nobilization.
No, I'm not trying to nobilize.
Make it an energy game here instead of a story game. Instead of a story discussion, make it an energy experience. Make it as though you are the center of two poles on a magnet. Now, you know what happens when you put the two negative poles together? You can feel them repelling each other, and the other side you can feel. So you want to be at the center of the polarity.
I love that.
You want to experience. You don't want to get too far out that you feel attracted. You don't want to go too far the other way that you feel repulsed. You want to be in relationship to the strong force, weak force, the weak force, strong. Those are very real forces, by the way.
I love it. It's challenging to talk about. You and I had this conversation yesterday off air about how the minute we start talking about it, it's so easy for it to get wrapped up in a story. And so, look, that was beautiful. The way you just illustrated it is this tension. It is this fulcrum point, and we hold these things in sort of one in either hand and go, okay, I can go either way, but my intention is to be able to navigate.
I want to first be a master of the energetics, and I want to be operating now and choosing at a level of the energy. We are sophisticated enough, not perfectly, but enough to begin to shift the consciousness point off of the story to the energy, and the energy is experienced in the body, not in a virtual body that we call a head trip.
Yep.
So breathe into it. Back to the hugging thing. Was that on this show or another show?
I have a hugging practice.
That hugging practice. If we're in the body, then the tension between wanting to leave or wanting to check out, wanting to go numb, or wanting to attack, or wanting to, but just to be with it. Again, that is this fine. Don't make stories about it. It's an energetic experience.
I get it.
Between the polarities of what are very literally strong force, weak force. There are very literally creation forces in our world.